I thought if my parents ever saw me like this, they'd drop everything to help, that they'd rush to hold me, demand answers, maybe even call the police. But when they looked at my black eye, they said nothing, just silence. They left. And for the first time in my life, I knew what it felt like to truly not matter. The tea kettle whistled quietly on the stove as I stared at my reflection in the microwave door. The swelling on my cheekbone had darkened overnight, moving from purple to something closer to black. I had tried makeup twice. It didn't help. There's only so much concealer can cover when your eye looks like it's been through a war. I heard the elevator ding down the hall. My parents were here. I moved quickly, adjusting the throw pillows for the 5th time, making sure the place looked as normal as possible. God forbid they see the chaos inside my chest. The living room smelled like lavender-scented disinfectant, the kind hospitals use. Ironic, considering I work in one. The knock was soft, polite, as if they already knew something was wrong but didn't want to make it worse by appearing alarmed. I opened the door. There they were, Thomas and Darlene Brooks. My father in his usual navy cardigan, my mother in one of her church-ready blouses. For a split second, they froze. My mum's eyes darted to the bruise, widened slightly. My dad's jaw tightened. No one said a word. I forced a smile, even though my lips stung as it stretched. "Come in," I whispered. They stepped inside like they were entering someone else's house, not the home of their only daughter. My dad sat in the armchair, opened a newspaper he'd brought. My mum walked to the window and stared at the parking lot. The silence was unbearable. Not angry, not confused, just empty. I stood there wanting to scream, "Ask me what happened. Tell me I don't deserve this. Just say something." But they didn't. Instead, my mother said, "You've redecorated." I looked at the bruised wall beside her. I'd put a painting there last night to hide the dent. "Yeah," I said quietly, "just something small." We talked about the weather, her garden, his new glasses. Never once about my face. After 20 minutes, my father folded his paper and stood. "Well, we should get going." And just like that, they left. No hug, no questions, no protection. I watched the door close and felt something inside me cave in. This wasn't just abandonment. It was betrayal in its quietest, most polished form. And that, more than any bruise Marcus ever gave me, was the moment that broke me. I used to think revenge stories were for people who wanted payback. Now I know. Sometimes they're about proving you were worth saving, even if no one tried. 30 minutes later, I was still on the couch, barely moving. I hadn't cleaned the mugs, hadn't turned off the kettle. I just sat there, staring at the door, like it might open and undo what had just happened. Then it did open. My parents were back. I stood up too fast, heart leaping with some wild hope I hated myself for. Maybe they'd gone downstairs and talked about it. Maybe they realized what they'd just ignored. But no. My mother walked in briskly, carrying her tablet. My dad followed, calm and serious, like a man entering a boardroom. "We need to talk about the inheritance," Mom said, without looking up from her screen. I blinked. "What?" She took a seat. "The $62,000 your grandmother left you. We talked to the bank." I felt the blood drain from my face. "Why would you—" "It's not safe for you to manage that right now," my dad interrupted. "With your situation." "With my situation?" I almost laughed. "You mean the part where I'm black and blue and you walked out without saying a word?" They exchanged a glance. That kind of look people give when they think they're being reasonable and you're the one being difficult. "We're moving the funds temporarily," Mom said, "to a shared account with Alyssa. She's applying to graduate school in London. You're not using the money anyway, and this way it helps the family." That stopped me cold. Alyssa, my cousin, the golden child, the one who once said I was too soft for the real world. "So you saw your daughter injured, said nothing, then came back to take her money, and give it to someone who's never even called me in 3 years. I wish you wouldn't be dramatic, Dad muttered. Viewers, I know this sounds insane, but I need to ask, if you were me, what would you have done in that moment? Really? What do you say when the people who raised you look at your pain and say, we're moving your future into someone else's hands? I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I just said, you need to leave. My mum sighed like I'd just failed a math test. We'll be in touch, she said, already heading for the door. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. But as the door clicked shut again, it didn't feel like an ending. It felt like the beginning of something I hadn't let myself imagine until now, something cold and clear, something like taking back everything they assumed I'd give away. I didn't sleep that night. My mind kept looping through their words. It helps the family. You're not using it anyway. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. Around 3 a.m., I finally grabbed my laptop and logged into my banking app. And there it was. $62,000. Gone. Transferred. I clicked into the activity log. The money had been moved into a joint account, my name removed entirely. Listed co-owners, Darlene Brooks and Alyssa Carter. Alyssa. That name made something sour twist in my stomach. My cousin. The same girl who once told me, you're not strong enough to live in LA, maybe nursing suits you, you just follow instructions, right? I shut the laptop and sat in the dark for a long time, just trying to feel anything other than hollow. The next morning I did something I hadn't done in years. I called Claire, my mum's estranged sister. Claire had always been the black sheep, cut off from the family after she talked back too many times. I was warned not to be like her, but I remembered she once gave me a journal for my 18th birthday with a card that read, "If they don't see your worth, write it yourself." She picked up on the second ring. "Hayley?" Her voice sounded tired but warm. "Are you okay?" That did it. I broke down crying. Not the elegant kind, full, messy sobs that shook my whole chest. I told her everything. Marcus, the bruises, the silence, the money. She didn't interrupt once. When I finally stopped, she was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "You know this isn't about you, right? This is about control. Your parents never learned to love people without owning them." That hit hard. We met that afternoon. She made coffee, handed me tissues, and pulled out her old filing box. "I'm going to help you," she said, "but we're doing it the smart way." Claire helped me pull my grandmother's will. She'd kept a copy, of course she had. It clearly stated that the money was meant for me, only me. No joint access, no reassignment. I felt my hands shake as I read it. They didn't just ignore me. They didn't just abandon me. They'd erased me. "I'm done begging," I told Claire. She nodded. "Good. Now let's get your name back." That night I sat by her window watching the streetlights blur through the rain. My phone buzzed with a text from Alyssa. "Hey, just checking, are you really mad about the money? I thought your parents said you were okay with it." I stared at the screen. No apology. No acknowledgement. Just passive confusion. Like I was the problem. And in that moment, something inside me hardened. I had spent years trying to be the good daughter, the quiet one, the helper. Now I was done being quiet. Claire sat across the table, flipping through papers like she was back in law school. Except this wasn't a case file. It was my life. "So," she said calmly, tapping the page, "here's the will. It names you and only you. No joint authority, no transfer clauses. What they did wasn't just unethical, it was illegal." I swallowed hard. Even seeing it in writing, on official, notarized paper, still made it feel surreal. "They're my parents." Claire looked at me for a long moment. "That doesn't make them your protectors." That hit deeper than I expected. We took the next steps slowly, filed for financial fraud, sent certified notices, froze the joint account before Alyssa could access the full amount. And when the bank saw the original will, they moved fast. But what I didn't expect was the rage I got in return. The first call came 2 days later. My mum. Her voice was sharper than I'd ever heard it. "This is disgusting, Hayley. You're tearing the family apart." I kept my tone calm. "You already did that. I'm just not pretending it didn't happen anymore." She gasped, like I'd slapped her, then hung up. Dad called after that. Not to apologize, not to ask what happened. He said, "If this goes public, you'll embarrass everyone, including yourself." That was the moment I realized they still didn't get it. To them, I was the problem, not the bruises, not the betrayal, not the theft. Me. But this time, I didn't back down. No crying, no stammering, no "I'm sorry if I hurt you." I said, "Then maybe you shouldn't have gambled your reputation on no one speaking up." It wasn't about revenge. It was about taking up space they told me I didn't deserve. Claire helped me write the official demand letter to reclaim the full $62,000. Plus interest. I didn't even care about the money anymore. Not really. What I wanted was the acknowledgement that they couldn't just do this and expect silence. And maybe, just maybe, I wanted to remind them that the quiet girl they used to ignore could roar if she needed to. Later that night, I stared at my ceiling fan spinning slow circles above me. Phone face down, heart surprisingly steady. This wasn't the end. I knew that. Families like mine don't unravel overnight. They cling to image, to silence, to pretending. But I wasn't pretending anymore. For the first time in my life, I wasn't asking for permission to be heard. I was simply speaking. The mediation room wasn't dramatic, like in movies. No judge's gavel, no courtroom echo. Just a quiet beige room with a long table, some bottled water, and a woman named Carla who introduced herself as the neutral facilitator. But it might as well have been a battlefield. I sat on one side, Claire beside me. Across the table were my parents, Thomas and Darlene Brooks, looking polished, composed, and completely unbothered. I almost admired their performance. "Let's begin," Carla said. "We're here to address the transfer of funds left to Ms. Hayley Brooks via her late grandmother's estate, and whether those funds were misappropriated." My mother smiled thinly. "We never misappropriated anything. We were acting in Hayley's best interest. She was under duress, mentally compromised after a traumatic event." Claire calmly slid a document across the table. "The will doesn't mention joint decision-making. It names Hayley as sole beneficiary. Legally, no one else had authority." My father leaned forward, voice measured. "You're ignoring the context. She wasn't thinking clearly. She was fragile." I met his eyes. "You mean bruised?" He flinched, just slightly, but said nothing. My voice was steadier than I expected. "You walked into my home, saw the state I was in, and said nothing. Then you came back and took what little I had left. You didn't protect me. You emptied me out." Carla looked toward my mother. "Mrs. Brooks, can you explain the transfer to Alyssa Carter?" Mum stiffened. "Alyssa is pursuing a master's degree in London. The opportunity came up quickly. We thought redirecting the funds could benefit the family as a whole. We didn't know Hayley would—" "Object," I cut in. "It was my name on the check. Not yours, not hers, mine." There was a long silence. Claire handed over bank records, the notarized will, and the signed transfer. "We're requesting return of the full $62,000, plus interest and damages." Dad leaned back, crossing his arms. "So this is how you repay us, after everything we've done?" I stared at him, almost laughing. "You didn't raise me to be grateful. You raised me to be silent. I'm just not playing that role anymore." That landed harder than I expected. For a moment, my mother's face actually cracked. A flicker of something, regret, embarrassment. It didn't last. Carla cleared her throat. Given the documentation and the original terms of the estate, I will strongly recommend the funds be returned immediately to Hayley Brooks. I advise both parties to avoid escalating to court. Claire squeezed my hand under the table. I didn't squeeze back right away. I was too stunned, not because we won, but because I finally said it out loud. I finally said it all. I moved into my new apartment on a Tuesday. It wasn't big, just one bedroom, a tiny balcony, and hardwood floors that creaked in the corners. But it was mine, every inch of it, mine. The morning light poured through the window as I unpacked my last box, a stack of photo albums, old birthday cards, and one wrinkled letter from my grandmother. She had written it years ago, before her health started fading. Don't let anyone decide who you are, Hayley, even if they share your blood. I read it 3 times before tucking it inside a frame and placing it on my bookshelf, between a candle and a little ceramic bird I bought at a thrift store. That corner felt like peace. My phone buzzed, a message from Claire. "You okay?" I smiled, typed back, "For the first time in a long time, yeah." I brewed a cup of coffee, sat by the window, and listened to the quiet. No shouting, no guilt, no pretending, just me. And it was enough. I don't know if my parents will ever call again. I don't know if they'll try to explain or justify or rewrite what they did, but I do know this. I'm no longer waiting at the door hoping they'll come back with the right words. That part of me, the one that begged for love from the people who looked away, she's gone. And in her place is someone I'm finally starting to like. If you've ever had to walk away from family just to find yourself, I see you, you're not dramatic, you're not ungrateful, you're just done being invisible. Was there a moment when you knew it was time to stop waiting for someone to love you the way you deserved? If you're open to sharing, drop it below. Someone else might need to hear it today.